And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Okay, today's ice edge, not much different from what we saw yesterday, although the eastern coast here seems to be opening up a little bit more from what was seen on yesterday's analysis here, and still a pretty good open area here off the western Arctic coast, and still looking at some heavier ice in close to the coastline there from an area southwest of Point Lay all the way down in toward Kotzebue Sound. And for tonight's weather, pretty quiet out here over the Bering Sea. Nothing much, a couple of weak troughs out to the west, and that's about it. Light winds right into the south. Well, actually, light winds across much of interior Alaska, maybe a little breezier up there on the eastern Arctic coast there, where there'll be colder temperatures with some areas seeing snow or mixed precipitation there, mostly on the central and east side. Numerous showers over the central and eastern interior southward into northern Cook Inlet, and still an isolated shower possible over the northern panhandle, otherwise fair with light winds. That holds into tomorrow. Partly to mostly sunny across all the southeast coast with more in the way of some low clouds along the coastline there, but temperatures still pretty nice and a lot of cool temperatures with showers from the Arctic coast right on down into the Tanana Valley, scattering out a drier day tomorrow here across southern Alaska than what we saw today, and then dry out here to the west all the way up to the Seward Peninsula. Out in the Bering Sea, no big storms at all. In fact, hardly, just a couple of weak troughs here with a band of light rain, fog, and drizzle dragging across the central Aleutians, approaching the Pribilof Islands, and another one back there over the farther western Aleutians. And then for Monday, a little weak low develops and pushes eastward here, links up with a trough for areas of rain and showers up to that low pressure area over the eastern Brooks Range, drier to the northwest, and cloudy, showery, and still on the cool side here from Bristol Bay into Prince William Sound, but just some scattered light showers, and that's about it. Maybe some sun breaks for Bristol Bay, Kodiak Island, and the fairest place will be over the southeast coast. And for the coastal water forecast, central and south coast tomorrow, northwest winds at 20 knots with seas 6 feet here. Up on the north coast, west winds of 15 knots, 4 to 5 foot seas. South at 15 for Lynn Canal, and northwest at 10 for Stevens Passage. Clarence Strait, northwest winds 15 knots with 3 foot seas. And then the outlook for Monday, for the south coast, light west breeze at 10 knots, 5 foot seas. And for the north coast, anywhere from south to southeast winds 10 to 15 knots with 4 foot seas. Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay, Stevens Passage, all looking at south winds of 15 knots, south at 10 for Clarence Strait. Prince William Sound, light south wind tomorrow at about 10 knots with seas at 2 feet. West-southwest winds 15 knots for the North Gulf Coast. Southwest 15 for the Barren Islands. West 15 for Kamishak Bay. South to southwest winds at 20 knots for Cook Inlet. And then even lighter winds on Monday as that south wind continues to diminish here in Cook Inlet. South at 15. Southeast 20. Kamishak Bay east at 20 for the Barren Islands, western North Gulf Coast. Southeast 15 excuse me, for the eastern North Gulf Coast. And east winds at 10 knots for Prince William Sound. And for Kodiak Island, southwest winds 15 to 20 knots. Bristol Bay west at 10 knots. Variable winds 10 knots for the Alaska Peninsula with seas running 2 feet all the way up here to Sitkinak Island. And for Monday, no change. Variable winds at 10 knots with 2 to 4 foot seas for the Alaska Peninsula. East winds 15 knots for Kodiak Island. And for the eastern Aleutians, variable winds 10 to 15 knots for the day Sunday. Adak and Atka west-southwest at 15. And then for the western Aleutians, southwest winds 20 to 25 knots. And then for Monday, west-northwest winds at 20 knots for the western Aleutians. Central areas here, west at 20 knots with 3 to 4 foot seas. And for the Fox Islands, variable to west winds at 10 to 15 knots. Southwest coast, west-southwest winds 10 to 15 knots for Sunday. Northwest at 10 for St. Lawrence Island. North at 10 for Norton Sound. Light variable winds for the Pribilofs, and southwest 15 for St. Matthew Island. And for the day on Monday, light variable winds here out over the Bering Sea from St. Matthew Island to St. George. South to southwest at 10 knots for the southwest coast. And south winds at 10 for Norton Sound, south 15, St. Lawrence Island with 3-foot seas. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast for tomorrow on the east side here over toward Barter Island, Kaktovik at Demarcation Point. West at 25 knots. That's good for for brisk wind advisories actually there with the ice cover. And then diminishing back as you head west here to northwest at 10 for the central and western Arctic coast, and the Chukchi Sea north to northwest at 15 knots. And then on Monday, light variable winds here for the Chukchi Sea at 5 to 10 knots. West to southwest winds at 10 knots for the central and western Arctic coast. Eastern Arctic coast west at 15 knots.